Hi, good morning. I'm so sorry, a bit of a technical hitch, and we have created a new link. So I have to send that out to people. So good morning, good morning, good morning. Um, let me quickly let me quickly send this out to everyone. Let me quickly send this link out to everyone, and then have people join us for this conversation. Okay. Hi, welcome. Just give me a minute. Um, if you're here, I am trying to send out this link, distribute this link to other people. If you can hear me, let me know. If you can see me, let me know so that I know that I am not speaking to myself. We will soon start, please. We had a very slight technical glitch and we are trying to sort that out. I'm trying to distribute the link to the broadcast that I have already made. Good morning. Doo-doo-doo, doo-doo. Good morning. Welcome wherever you're joining from. Just give us a minute for other people to join because we had some errors on the link. So we're starting on a new link and people are just being made aware of the new link. So apologies for the inconvenience, but we will get there. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you for coming in. All right. All right. Good morning. I think we can make a start. Um, I think we can make a start, right? Thank God it's gonna be saved, it's gonna be recorded, and I'm sure that anyone who wasn't able to catch us live would be able to um watch the recording when they join us, right? So yeah, good morning. Thank you for coming in. Thank you for coming in wherever you're joining from. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're joining us from. If this is our first time of meeting, my name is Dr. Vivian Okoye, and I do a lot of things. I have many expressions, but I like to sum them up in one sentence, and that is I heal minds for a living. So I I call myself the mind healer, right? And that's really the essence of what I do. And in all my expressions, be it working with kids, be it working with parents, be it working with families, be it working with organizations, my philosophy is that I would not want anybody to come to me and then leave me better than they came, right? I want you to come to me and leave me worse than they came. So I want you to come to me and leave me better than you came, right? You come to me and you leave me with more joy, more happiness, more information, more awareness, whatever it is, or whatever that looks like. But leave me better, feeling better in your soul and in your mind than you came, right? So this morning, this live session is really inspired by something that happened to me recently, and which I feel like is a conversation that we all need to have as parents. If you have a child who has a device, who has access to the internet, who has access to the socials, then this is a conversation that we all need to have. So if you're listening to me and you know someone who needs to be here, your friends, your family, even your enemies, right? If you know anyone who has a child who needs to be here, I would appreciate if you just share this link, with them. This is a chill conversation. If you have ever been to any of our Saturday morning sessions, is really chill. We call it family meeting, right? Where we just talk about challenges we have and how to navigate those challenges. And this morning is all about how we can keep our children safe online. And it's really an interesting thing, because when we talk about keeping our children safe online, it seems like an abstract conversation, in the sense that people don't realize that the virtual world is as real as the real life world. I mean, you have a 13-year-old or 14-year-old, you're not going to send them into the city without any guidance. You're not going to send them out there without supervision, right? We take so much care. I mean, even now, before we send our children to the shops, we're all worried, we're all panicked, we're all making sure and checking that they can do that and they can do that and they'll be safe. But then when it comes to the virtual world, I don't think that we take as much care as we do for the physical world, because a lot of us hand our children access to devices, which is a whole world on its own, because there are a lot of people in that world, in that virtual world, who come to do different things and who have access to our children, and we don't even know it. We think it's all fun and entertainment. We think it's all good vibes, right? But there are people in that space whose intentions are downright evil. And we have to start thinking about it in that way, and thinking about the conversations that we need to be having with our children before we actually send them into that world or into that space. And those conversations are like ongoing, they should be ongoing conversations, right? Ongoing conversations that we need to keep having with our children, as long as they are in that space and as long as they are using devices, as long as they have access to internet, and as long as they're on the socials, right? So at the end of this, I'm really a bit frustrated because I can't see your conversations, I can't see your chats. This is my first time going live on YouTube, and it's a bit new, so I'm gonna stick to StreamYard in the future. But yeah, we'll do it regardless. Anyways, So at the end of this, we want to understand what our children are up against in this online world. And then we want to kind of like talk about strategies that we can use to build healthy habits and conversations we need to have, with them, maybe code of conduct, how to operate, how to behave in that online space. Because if we're talking about the physical world, there are things you would tell your kids. Oh, when you go here, this is how to do, this is what to do, this is where to go, this is where not to go, and all of that. And I don't know how many of us do that for our children, for the online space. If you have been in our community for a long time, you know that we have had quite a number of conversations around this, and we have talked about having a media agreement, a family media contract, where before you actually hand the media over to your kids, you have a contract, you have an agreement, you have your do's and don'ts. But this recent event, just opened my eye to a whole different aspect of things, in the sense that sometimes we think that our kids are smart and there are things that they cannot fall prey to, or sometimes we feel like we have done it all and so our kids are safe. But I just realized that sometimes it can be there under your nose and things are going on and you don't really know. And sometimes we kind of like overestimate our children's judgment of things. But what we need to understand is that children will be children, and as far as their brains have not fully developed, there is still an extent to which they can understand the consequences of their actions. They will make random judgments. They would make judgments in excitement. They will make decisions that are not properly thought through. So we cannot really overestimate their capacity. We cannot really overestimate their abilities. We need to keep checking, keep grounding, keep ensuring that what we're saying is going through and they're understanding and we're on the same page. Even as adults, we make mistakes, don't we? Even as adults, sometimes you fall to some online pranks, scams, and things, and you're wondering, how did I get here? Then talk more of a young child, like, or a young adult or a teenager who, is just out there. So, what conversations, right? What conversations really should we have with our children around online safety and keeping safe online, right? What conversation really should we have with them? There are lots. There are a lot of things that happen on that space, and one of the conversations we need to have with them is about content, right? What content is appropriate? What content is inappropriate? Right? You go on TikTok and you see a lot of things, people dancing to different trends, right? Is it all trends that they should engage in? And engage in doesn't really just mean you're doing it. Engage in also involves watching it, commenting on it, liking it, right? So you want to have that conversation with your children. What is, and this is what the dinner table is for, right? Really just having conversation as family. This is what we talk about, family meetings, right? This is what they are for. This is what we talk about downtimes, having those family downtimes where you just checking and have all these random conversations, and you'll be amazed at things that can come up in those moments. So for you and your family and your kids, what is appropriate content? Because it will vary. It will vary for different people. The content that you're okay to engage in might be something that I would never find myself engaging in. So it still comes down to having that value-based conversation. There are things that you might see and you're like, well, there's nothing wrong with it. And I would see it and I'm like, no way, I'm doing that. So really, as a family, having that conversation around, what is appropriate content, what trends are we gonna engage in, what trends are we gonna not engaging. Also talking to them about, and especially your teenagers, coming from a perspective of what a digital footprint is. Because for some teenagers, they say, oh, I'm not doing that trend, I'm not part of that trend, but my friends are doing it and I just like it, right? So if you're liking it, then you're accepting it. And somebody who knows, you can see that you liked something and then they make a mental note that you like that. I remember one time going on one of the blogs and seeing a comment of someone I really, really respected, and I know that shifted my perspective about them. So he might say, "Oh, I'm not part of that," but his comments and the fact that he likes that just told me a different thing about them. So we need to also, tell our children what digital footprints are, right? The things you're liking, the things you're commenting on, even if you're not actively part of the trend, also tells a lot about you, and it stays and it's there forever. Yeah. So yeah, you need to have that conversation. If your children are using devices, have that conversation around inappropriate content. What content is inappropriate? What content is appropriate? Sexual content, pornography. They have access to all of these things. If I tell you the number of children who are brought to me for consultation based on their exposure to pornography, I'm talking 10, 11, 12, then you would be more careful, right? If your children are using devices, you'll be more careful. And sometimes, in fact, many times, it's not even they're not exposed just from their own devices. They're also exposed from the devices of other adults in the house. So if you are someone who have adults coming to your home, have relatives coming to your home, then you have conversation with your kids around how they can access other people's phones. So for example, for my kids, you don't touch any other adult's phone, right? Because we don't know, we can't tell what those people are doing with their phones. I can tell what I do with my phone, so I can give you my phone. But if we have a relative or a friend who comes to stay over, no, you're not going to touch their phone because we don't know what they do on their phone, right? And they could expose you to content that is inappropriate. So very, very important. Then you need to have a conversation with your kids around online predators. This is the big one, right? This is the big one because there is a lot going on online, and these predators can come from anywhere. It isn't just on the socials, even on the gaming apps, right? Multiplayer games, right? They are there. So they come out, they pose as children, they're chatting with your kids, they pose as their age mates, they pose as teenagers, right? Predators have well thought out, articulated plan of how to trap in their prey, right? So you can think all you want that your child is smart, your child is intelligent. Once that child becomes a target for a predator, the predator is going to come at them. They're going to find the loop, right? They're going to find an opening, and they'll hit it until they loop them in. So how do you avoid that? You avoid that by giving your child clear understanding of how predators function, so that they can smell them from afar. They don't even engage, right? As much as, yes, I would say, oh, block out, don't engage. I will do that because I will tell my kids, you're not playing multiplayer games if you don't know the person. You're not adding any friend if you don't know the person. My kids haven't even started playing multiplayer games, right? Like Roblox and all of them, Fortnite and all of those. But you have to just have that conversation around how predators function. And on the backdrop of all of that is also, you have to have a great relationship, because one of the things that predators look out for are children who are a bit isolated, or children who are seeking attention, if you get what I mean, who are seeking attention, who are seeking love, who are seeking validation. And once they find that opening, right, especially that validation, once they find that opening, a child who is seeking validation, who is seeking love, who is seeking attention, and they feed that, before you get your child out of that loop, it's going to be tough, because there is something that you're not feeding your child that this person is feeding your child, and then that puts them above you in the hierarchy of things, you know. So it's really, at the backdrop of that, is that you have to do your job as a parent by being in your children's life, by, you know, being connected to them, by ensuring that they understand that you love them. Because it's one thing to have the intention, oh, We all have that intention. We all love our kids. We're all doing our best for our kids. But it's another thing for your children to interpret what you're doing as love and to understand it as love, and for it to match their definition of what love is, right? So this is why we do all of the assessment that we do in our community, all of the love language assessment, for you to understand what your child what your child's love language is, so that you can love them the way they want to be loved and the way they interpret as love, right? So on the backdrop of that, you love your children, you're connected to them, you're having conversation with them, then you have to have this conversation with them around how predators function, because they would come, these are 40, 50-year-old men and women, in some instance, posing as teenagers, posing as their age mates. What questions, what are the things these people would say to them? These people will offer them things, these people will offer them advice, they will be overly nice. These people would want information about them, these people will want to draw them in, right? These people will make them to lie. These people will force them not to tell other people about them, right? Um, you know, so for example, the if you got my broadcast, the young girl that I was talking to, this guy that was talking to her had told her, when she had mentioned to the guy that this is how old I am, the guy said, no, can you delete that and write I am 19 years old? Because why? The guy is doing things to cover his tracks, so that if at any time he opens, he's gonna come, or if at any time the police is involved, he's gonna come say, oh, she told me she was 19-year-old. I didn't know I was talking to a child, right? So they need to look out for those behaviors that predators um exhibit or portray, or how they talk, right? They will make you want to lie, they want to keep it a secret. They'll tell you not to tell anyone. They will tell you that your relationship is sacred, it's between the both of you. They would try to be overly nice, try to offer you things that you don't have, try to say things, try to make you feel like other people don't like you as much as they do. So they'll try to tell you things about your parents, to make them look like they're bad, right? So for example, if a young child would have an argument with their parents and go to a predator, um, to talk about that argument, instead of the predator trying to help them to get back with their parents, that the predator is going to blow the thing out of proportion and make it look like the parent is a bad person, so that they are gaining more trust of this young person. So these are conversations you shouldn't get tired of having with your young people. And it looks like, and as we're talking about it now, it looks like, oh, my daughter cannot fall for that, she's too smart. Oh, my son, he will not fall for that, he's too smart. Please don't overestimate your children's abilities. Just have these conversations. And why I say have these conversations, so that it would stick in their head, and so that when any of this starts to happen, it will click. Mommy has been saying this a lot, daddy has been saying this a lot, let me even check, let me confirm if this person who they say they are, right? And the moment that you also want to really really discourage your children from actually having conversations with strangers, people that they don't know. I know that we are in a very very digitalized world. I myself have met people that I don't know online, and we have grown to become friends and stuff. But how do we verify, how do we fact check the people we're talking to? How do we ensure, do we have contact? Are there people that can check them out? Do we have addresses? Don't just talk to a random stranger, especially if you're a young person, and don't even dare try to have an arrangement of meeting with a random person online, right? Don't dare. So these are conversations that you need to constantly have with them, as far as they are on that space. Don't assume. There's something they say assumption is the lowest level of intelligence, right? So don't ever assume that, oh, they've got it. they know they're smart kids. They can't fall for that. Nobody is 100% smart at every point in time. There are times where maybe out of emotion, out of frustration, that you can make decisions that you would then look back and say, how did I fall for this? How did I not think about this? So always be ahead of the curve. If you have been with me long enough, I always say there is something called the law of first mention, right? So it's important that these conversations always happen first with you, so that you become a point of reference for your kids whenever anything is about to go wrong. We're not going to raise perfect kids. Our kids are going to make mistakes. They would be children, so they will make mistakes that children make. But you want to be that parent whom your children can always come back to when they realize that it's actually going haywire, it's actually going crazy, right? So you also want to talk about another struggle. It's cyberbullying. So you also want to talk about that. The way you have bullying in real world is the way you have cyberbullying, and this has destroyed a lot of children's self-esteem. They go to school, they have school groups, they have school chats, they're on socials, people comment on their looks, so look at yourself as an adult. Imagine yourself as an adult that you post a picture of yourself and people come under that picture and they're saying you look rubbish. Why are you wearing this? Why is your hair like that? Why are you looking like that? This is ugly and stuff. Then imagine what it will do to you if it hasn't happened to you, or if it has happened to you. Imagine what it does to you, or it did to you. Then imagine what it would do to a young child, right? So cyberbullying is real, and you want to have a conversation. If your children are on the socials, you want to have a conversation around that, around cyberbullying, whether it is them who is bullying other people or they are being bullied. That conversation needs to be had, right? How do we engage? How do we ensure that we're not exposing ourselves to be bullied? And how do we ensure that we're not also bullying other people? Right? So, and please, on your own, do a bit of a research on some of what I'm talking about, because I may not be very exhaustive in this one sitting, but you want to, take your time and do a bit of a research and understand what cyberbullying looks like, how it works, what online predators, do, and that expands, the conversation that you might be able to have with your kids. Another conversation very important is identity theft and scam, right? So your children need to understand, what privacy is, what information that they're allowed to share out there. They shouldn't share their full name, their location. They shouldn't share real-time events. So for example, if you are in a fast food, for example, or you're at a party, for example, you don't have to share it that time. You can have all your recordings, have all your videos, and when you have left that space, you can then share. So teach them about privacy, teach them about, the fact that somebody can take their identity and use it for a scam. Somebody can take their pictures, create an account, and start acting like them. So they have to be careful, about all of that. They have to be careful how much information they're sharing about themselves online, because people can actually stalk you online, find out a lot about you, and then do things to you. We also want to talk about the addictive effect of being on screen. How much screen is good? How does it impact your mental health? How does it impact your academic? How does it impact your ability to focus, and all of that? So these are like really, really important conversation as parents that we need to have. If we have children who are already using devices, or if you plan to get a device, for your children. If you haven't given your children a device yet, then this is in good time, right? You need to sit them down, have all of this conversation, and then come to that point where you both reach an agreement, you both have a contract for how they will use their device before you then hand the device over to them. But if you have already given them a device, it's fine. There is no harm. You can start having that conversation right now. And one of the ways I tell people, don't make these things awkward. Yeah. There are always teaching moments. There are things happening. If you're online, there are things trending. There are people dying. So, for example, predators, online predators, that's one of the easiest ones to have. There are girls who are being killed for visiting people. Bring that up on your dinner table. Guys, did you guys hear this information that is trending? For example, there is a girl, so, and then allow them to talk, you know, throw it open as an open conversation, hear their opinion, and then give them superior knowledge. And you want to approach that, because most times one of the things I say this very often, one of the things that happen when we see a trending information is that we're quick to give our hot takes and hot advice. We don't first sit down to reflect and think, this could have been me, this could have been my child, this could be anybody. We just feel that we are righteous and we are above some of these things, and we just say, oh, God forbid, oh, it cannot be me, my children are this, and your children are, they're not different from any other child, right? Yes, we're doing our best. Yes, we're hands-on parents. Yes, we're conscious parents. But anytime you see anything happening, anything trending, I want you to first think, could this have been my child? Or if this is my child, how would they have responded? Would it have been any different? Think like that. It helps you to, assess your parenting, assess the conversations you want to have with your children, and reassess how you're doing things. But if you're focused outwardly at, blaming and advising and all of that, you don't even take the lessons that come from that experience, right? So really, really important. Use those teaching moments, use those trending topics, come to your dinner table and have these conversations with your children, right? And if they're already using devices, you want to start with setting some healthy habits. So what does healthy habits look like? You want to start having, like, setting clear screen time limits, right? Screen time limits can be a saver for you, in the sense that they're not just out there wandering, right? So it may not be that you totally eradicate screen, especially if you have younger children. Many things are happening on the virtual world, on the devices, and children can actually be productive on their devices. They can do great things with their devices. There are children who, so for example, my daughter writes, so she writes on her tablets. So there are children who have actually great things they're doing on their devices. But if even if they're being productive on their devices, if they have too much time, they can wander. So that is why screen time becomes important. So if your child has screen time and they know that they get 3 hours on screen, and then there are productive things that they need to do on their screen, when they get their 3 hours, they will focus, do those things, and then get some entertainment, and then screen time is over. But if they have screen time endlessly, what it means is that, they can wander, they can go anywhere, and that opens them up to a lot of risk, right? So set screen time and teach your children to think. We cannot emphasize that. In fact, the whole essence of our last year's conference was on raising mentally strong children, children who can think, children who can make decisions, right? So teach your children how to think before they post, how to think before they comment, how to think before they like, right? Come up with acronyms. Is this safe? Is this the kind of content that I want to comment on? Does this align with my value? Is what this person saying is true? Is what this person saying true? Is there any way to fact check this before I agree with it? Teach them to pause, to think before they comment, before they post. Before they post, if the older kids, before they post, come up with a checklist of what they need to do before they, put a post of themselves out there. Is this how I want people to perceive me? Is this how I want to represent my family? Is this aligning to my value? What is this post about? Is it edifying? Is it teaching? Or is it just all fun and vibes? So teach them to think, to have the process that they go through before they post, before they like, before they comment, right? Also reorient them around how they engage in the virtual world. So when you come into the virtual world, you can either be a consumer or a producer, right? So You want to reorient your children to just to be less of consumers. Yes, we will all consume because you don't have it all. So you will learn from people, you pick from people, you would, feed from people's content. But you want to also teach them how to produce, how to be creators, right? How to shape and be a voice in their own little way, right? So, when you come into the digital space, what are you contributing? Are you just there scrolling and laughing and, just mindlessly consuming content? Or are you thinking, what do I bring to this space? How do I contribute to this space? What can I add to this space? And all of that. So, these are a few habits that you want to teach them, and it's just really around the process, how they're thinking about it, and if you're able to help them establish those thought processes, then it will shape how they show up in that space, right? And then you want to come up with, and this is like some of the things you want to have in if you're having a contract. And if you're hearing me say contract, and if you're new here, we have something we call family media contract that we encourage you to have with your kids when they are using their devices, and it just outlines the do's, the don'ts, the code of conducts, how they engage with the media. Outline it, have a conversation about it. Both parties agree, the parents and the children agree, and you sign it, right? So that when things happen, you can refer back to that instead of just talking too much. That saves you a lot of talk, right? So, code of conduct, how do we engage? How do we show up? How do we interact on that space? Tell them to respect themselves first. They need to have respect for themselves, just as you will have respect for yourself when you're walking on the streets and you don't answer to everyone and you don't open yourself up to everyone. You also want to have respect for yourself on the virtual space. You don't engage, you don't follow everyone, you don't allow everyone to follow you, you don't open yourself up to everyone, you don't, so for example, even for some of us who have, quite a number of followings, there are comments that I would just delete. I would not engage if they're offensive. So have respect for yourself, and then also respect others. What you don't want other people to do to you, don't do it to them, right? We've talked about thinking critically. We've talked about privacy. Privacy is very, very important. And I think that for the young children, for the teenagers, they don't really have any business being on some of the social media. I would avoid it completely if I can, right? But if you can't, there are some spaces that you don't want them to be, and even if they are on those spaces, you want them to maintain some level of privacy and not open themselves up like completely, to everyone. So privacy is really, really important, because I mean, people are weird. There are very weird people out there that you don't want to expose your children to, right? And then teach them to know when to log off, right? I have a friend who, from the daughter is about 21 now, but she got her phone at 16, right? From when she got her phone, they've had all of these conversations, and um one of the rules that they had is by the time she got to 18 and got into uni, one of the rules that they had is that she logged off every day at 8:30, right? And it just grew with her and became a habit, right? Even till now, you would not find her online after 8:30. She's 21 now. Till now, you would not find her anywhere online after 8:30. So it's really, in inculcating that habit, right? And if your children are younger, you can enforce it. It doesn't have to be a negotiation. You can actually enforce it, and there are tools that you can use to enforce that. So parental control apps, right, like the Google Family Links and Apple Screen Time. You have Bark. You have Cruise Studio or so. So some of those apps, you just, because you would have a pushback, you have a power struggle, because screen time is addictive. If we're being honest, even for us adults, it's very addictive. But you want to not be a tyrant, have the conversation, get an agreement, and then help them enforce it, right? So because sometimes you know what is right, so even the kids can know what is right. Oh, we have had this conversation, we have agreed that we log out by 7:30, for example, but then I'm watching this TikTok video, but I feel like watching 30 minutes more, and 30 minutes becomes 1 hour, and 1 hour becomes 2 hours. It happens to me, it happens to you. So but for them, you want, because of what you want to achieve as well, because of their growing brain, you want to help them enforce that. So some of these tools might be important for you to use, and then that automatically logs anybody out wherever they are. Once you put your, for example, Apple Screen Time, once you set it to go off at, for example, 8 o'clock, it shuts down all the app except calls, for example. So you want to help them enforce that, and then you want to teach them to use the safe browsing search engines, right? So for younger kids, they can use Kido to search, because that then blocks off some inappropriate content that are not age appropriate, right? You can for your teenagers, you can tell them to use Google Safe Search, right? So that also blocks up blocks off like things like pornographic sites and stuff, right? So, and then you do some research, be on hands, be abreast with trends and with the things that are happening and with the risks that are out there, and just keep having this conversation. For me, right? For me, I always say, if you're close to me and if you have been in my space for a long time, I always say that the best parenting hack is having a relationship with your kids. There is no other parenting hack that will supersede that, right? The best parenting hack is creating a rock solid relationship with your kids, being a present parent, being genuinely concerned, genuinely interested in what they're interested in, genuinely willing to listen to what they're telling you. That way you create that space where they can always come to you with their problems, because there would always be problems. It can never be a perfect ride, right? But if you don't have that relationship with them, you won't know half of the things that are going on in their world. Create a family atmosphere where your children are safe to air their opinion, to share their pains, to share their fears. That will save you a lot of problems as a parent. Again, I'd like to remind us that the virtual world is as real as the physical world, and even riskier than the physical world. So if you're not going to send your child to um, a city near you without proper guidance, please do not let them into the virtual world without having these pertinent conversations that are important for them to know before getting into that world, right? So it's really, really important. I'm going to create a detailed guide, right? I would create a detailed guide, something that you can always refer to have these conversations and to have some of this understanding, a detailed guide with some case studies. And I would put it out there for those who would be interested in getting them. If you are not on any of our network, if you're not on our WhatsApp network, our Telegram network, or if you're not following me on social media, then you should just find a way to connect. If you are on this live stream, please just follow on YouTube. And as soon as I put that guide together, you'll be able to, we'll share the link for you to be able to download it, right? So thank you for coming. It's just very weird. I'm joining. This is my first time using YouTube Live, so I'm not able to see your comments or whatever you're saying. I'm on the YouTube studio. I don't know how it works. I'm just hoping that I'm seeing that people are online watching me, but I'm just hoping that you get everything that I have said. I'm sorry it's not a bit interactive. Hopefully in the next one on Saturday, we're going to join in with StreamYard, and that way we're able to, have that chat and get to your questions and answer those questions. Yeah, so I'm back. If you've missed me, I've missed you too. I'm back. We're going to do this Saturdays. So I'll see you next week. Thank you for joining. Thank you for sticking around. And sorry for all of the um, technical shebang. We hope to get it right in the next one. Thank you and have a wonderful weekend. Thanks for joining. Bye. Bye.